Welcome to the Space Turtle Show, the greatest show in the galaxy. I'm one of your hosts, Joey Garvey.
And I'm Josh Roto.
And what movie did we watch this week?
All right, so for my last pick, I really kept it down to the last day to decide because I'm like, you know what, I gotta be in the mood for it, And so I ended up selecting Yi Yi, a 1 and a 2, a movie by Edward Yang. A pretty famous movie, I would say, coming at the end of his life. Unfortunately, he died at 59 from cancer, but he had...
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it was so early too.
What a shame.
And this was one of his last movies. It hailed as one of his most poignant and concise, I guess. The other one would be Beautiful Day or A Brighter Summer Day. I don't know if you've heard of that one. But yeah, so it's clocking near at 3 hours. So it's definitely I was thinking between that or a shorter movie, but gotta go hard for the last one.
It's the last movie.
Yeah.
So what was your opinion of it?
I think that there are a lot of things to say about this movie, and I'm kind of teetering between life-changing and loving the movie.
So it's pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good.
It's
yeah.
alright. It's alright.
Nah, it's the worst movie I've ever seen in my life.
Literally worse than Jonah Hex.
Yes, and I'm just desecrating Edward Yang's grave.
Yeah. What an asshole. Gets cancer for what?
To make this shitty thing? No, I'm just kidding. But I thought that there were a lot of things that weren't the most eye-catching, and I feel like I need to watch it a second time just to let everything else marinate and for the story to have like this completeness that I was looking for in the movie while watching it. But at the same time, I felt that it had a lot of relevance to the things that I was thinking about and going through at that moment that I was watching it. And so I guess it's up in the air whether it's just really hard-hitting because it was relevant at that moment, or if a second watch would show me that it, wasn't maybe that entertaining or lacked a little bit of spice that I was looking for,
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, I loved it. Absolutely. There were so many things that I was impressed by, especially just to mention a few things right off the bat, like the scenery, atmosphere, the setting. They shot in, and it's based in, is it pronounced Taipei?
Yeah,
Taipei?
Yeah, I think it's Taipei. Yeah.
And it's just the way that they shoot the city, it just makes it seem so beautiful. Like, man, I wish I was living there. I literally asked Josh during the movie, I was like, you want to move to Taiwan? And I mean it. I dead ass mean it.
I was about to reply, bro. You wanna just die and get reincarnated as a kid and live and grow up in Taiwan? How about that instead? Would you do that with me?
Fuck, dude. I mean, if I can keep all my memories, I will do it. But I mean, so there's that, and the direction's beautiful.
Oh, for sure.
The way the movie introduced itself was kind of like, not bad, like interesting. The music score at the beginning was a little bit hammy. It had like that 90s kind of whimsy kind of thing. But looking back, I actually love that decision and the idea that this was like kind of the last happy moments of the movie.
It was like really barely happy too. Like other people were happy, but like the main characters, they're
Well, yeah, it was like an empty happiness, and I felt like the score was empty happy too. So
yeah, that opening scene actually reminded me of like The Godfather, I would say.
Oh,
just
yeah.
Because it's like that happy moment before everything like turns, and it's almost like this connection of like family that is almost obligatory and put up for shows almost. I wouldn't say that exactly with The Godfather, but in this one a little bit, especially because the main character just seemed like so detached from what was going on. And to mirror the ending scene, of course, that the moment of happiness was where they felt the most detached, and the moment of sadness is where they felt most connected as a family, so.
Yeah, well, and, in case you didn't know, Godfather, it's its 50th anniversary today, so it's kind of
Oh,
interesting.
really?
Because I mean, literally today. Not today for you guys, but today for us. So
A Thursday
cool.
afternoon?
Yeah. So it's pretty cool, isn't it?
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but I mean, going back to that though, it's like what I loved about this movie also is that kind of connection and sadness, like you're talking about. I think this film is a lot less sad than people would think on the surface, right? Because it's such a beautiful depiction of this family and their interactions and connections that I can't help but feel emotional about them, and even in their sadness, I feel very happy for them and their growth as people, and I just want to follow them wherever they go. I just fell in love with the characters.
Oh, for sure. I feel like that's the part that was almost kind of narratively weird for me because there are some characters, and actually pretty much just like the main character, the main family, except for the mom. I guess she went away and just
Yeah, she just fucking left, dude. What was that about?
Well, I guess depression, going into the mountains or whatever.
Yeah.
But there are scenes with other people, like, and I can understand that kind of um, rounds out the family with the connections with their business or the dad's business and his like I guess brother-in-law or something like that, and everything, which makes it a lot more slice of life and a lot more nuanced and poignant, I would say. But at the same time, during those scenes, I'm just like, oh, I just want to see that little boy again, or like I want to go back to the dude and his lost love, or maybe not lost love, rekindled something.
Yeah, but can we talk about that little boy for a second? Because
yes.
that is the cutest little boy I've ever seen in a film, by far, not even close. Like instant KO. This kid was like forget acting. Like acting definitely good.
Uh-huh.
The cuteness level. It's unbelievable. Like the thing was he's like filling the balloon with water and
he's
or
trying to get it.
Yeah, she's just like knocking on the door. Someone's knocking on the door, and he just got his face in the sink.
Yeah,
Just like hilarious, like little kid things that I just felt like they understood what it was like to be 4 or 5 better than any other movie I've ever seen.
for sure. Yeah, and I also think that it lends a respect to little kids as well, because when we're watching those things, it's just like, oh yeah, especially a first time through, it seems like he's just doing like little kid things, trying to fill a water balloon or whatever. But it culminates in like he's got a plan, man. He's trying to fill his water balloon for a really specific reason, and it is so funny when he drops it on the principal and then bolts. And I just love that he never got caught, man. That guy deserved it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think everything with that was so perfect. I mean, there were so many storylines that it was hard to feel like someone stole the movie because I actually was into every storyline.
Yeah, me too.
But, it's so hard to say he didn't steal the movie because, I don't know, he kind of did.
Yeah, because I feel like, he was treated with the amount of respect that every other character was as well. And the fact that they pulled that narrative and significance through with his character makes it just slightly more impressive, just because if every one of the characters were done the justice that they were meant to have, I guess, then it's just more impressive whenever you do it for a kid than whenever you do it for like a full-grown adult.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the kind of stuff they were doing and the scene selection, and also the fact that the kid just seemed like a genius.
Yeah,
but he wasn't a genius, but like he totally was a genius. Or like, all right, the last line he said that felt a little fake. There's no way a 5-year-old saying that.
He wrote that thing. It was like a monologue, man. That wasn't even just a paragraph. He sat down, wrote like 3 sentences. He wrote like a literal essay, man.
Yeah, like I give it a pass because I mean it was bars.
Yes,
but no way a 5-year-old wrote that shit.
Yeah, but I also think that they made him extra cute too, and I kind of love that about it. Another performance I would say emulates that type of thing is the Florida Project and the main character of that.
Oh yeah.
I thought she was brilliant in that, but she also has this like child dislikability, which I felt was a lot more relatable for that story. But it would have been a little bit less impactful if they used the amount of I guess abrasiveness that kids can have in this movie. I feel like a lot of the characters and the atmosphere itself is really quiet, and the way that he goes about his life is like a really quiet, unassuming, just being a kid, I guess. I mean, the only thing he does that are like really cause a lot of trouble is like dropping that water balloon. But otherwise, he brought a balloon to school and he got ratted on, and the teacher got mad at him. But he's not doing anything. And then takes some pictures, and the teacher gets mad at him. But he's not really doing anything.
Yeah, and the way they captured his emotional like connection with his father and his relationship with his father felt really genuine because they kind of you can very much tell that they're father and son, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That kind of like I don't know, that kind of whimsy, like that kind of silent like introspection that comes, and then he's not like a perfect kid, and the father's not a perfect father, obviously, but the way that they kind of capture that dynamic without even having too many scenes between them, it's just very clear the influence that they have with each other.
Yeah, and I think like a dignity too, because the dad has like a job and like he does that to get money and all that kind of stuff, but he has like dignity in how he works, and the way that the kid goes about his things is with dignity too, and that almost like juxtaposes the daughter, not in the sense that like, there's no dignity in what she does, but it's just like a romantic story, a more feelings story with the daughter, and emulating the father's rekindled love. So it's like I guess just his work life and his creativity and passion versus his love, and then those are both emulated in both kids. And I think that makes it really interesting of a narrative standpoint to have the kids match the dad so much, but at a different time. He always nostalgically looks back, especially in the scenes where it definitely mirrors the two, where the dad and his love like reminisce, and then the things happen in real time with the daughter. It just reminds me of everyone going through their own struggles at a different time, and it's not like the dad is any much better or even somewhat like not that much wiser either, maybe like a little bit and everything, but with the kids, they're just all experiencing their own lives in the same family but separate, and that almost kind of adds like a little bit of what's it called, like melancholy to like the story. It's the disconnect of the family going through their own troubles on their own, and they rarely ever cross paths.
Absolutely, and I loved the kind of, it was a parallelism with the two, like you were saying, and it's interesting that we hear the narration through the father from his perspective, but through that narration we're seeing a very similar, and they're trying to express nearly the same story, but from the perspective of the woman, his daughter. So you get both perspectives at the same time, and it's interesting the way that they contrast the father and the daughter's kind of appreciation of a very similar story.
I think that brings in that kind of excess narrative that I was bringing up earlier as well. Like, how did you feel about the boyfriend just murdering the other dude? Because I feel like that was really wild, and it honestly, culminated in one of the funniest scenes, or if not the funniest scene in that movie. I mean, the water balloon was hilarious, but like whenever they were talking about how he murdered this dude, and then they just started playing like like a Mortal Kombat from like the 1980s like graphic, like this is how he did it. He just started punching him and stabbing him. I literally died. I'm like, is this really what happens over there? Or is this like, am I not understanding? Like they just are just trying to like 3D show this type of stuff, or like what? Because that is so funny. Like,
Yeah, it was good, but like I felt like that was maybe a little over the top for the story they were telling. You know,
for sure,
like
yeah,
murder
yeah,
at the very end, and then like nothing, like no real payoff with that. But
hmm
I mean, it was an interesting decision. Like I didn't see it coming, but I think the word excess, like you said, is kind of appropriate for something like that. I mean, I didn't think this movie was perfect. I guess I did love it, but that is one thing like you know you could go without because it just felt extraneous.
yeah. That, and along with like the brother-in-law storyline, like how he was like a gambler, I guess, and like he had a wife who had a dog, like who he had a child with, but then he had this like ex person that came in the beginning that was like, no, I should have married you or something like that. And I don't know, I guess he was not trying to commit suicide, but he just got gas in the bathroom and he didn't leave or something. Like,
I mean, I'm glad they made that kind of convoluted because, like in my head, I'm thinking he tried to commit suicide.
bro, yeah, because I mean, at the end of the scene before, he's just like, this is it, I guess, or he's just like, and I'm like, damn, this guy's gone, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's like a situation where he's a really good character, so I feel like they wanted to put him in the film more, but maybe like with 5 or 10 minutes less of screen time, he would have popped a lot better.
Yeah.
But certain scenes, I was like, I don't know, like some scenes were fantastic, like when they did the baby shower, that scene,
Oh yeah,
great
that
scene,
was so
right?
funny. Yeah.
But then there's the other one where it's like, I don't know, they're in his apartment and he got robbed again or something.
Yeah,
I'm
it's like,
like,
I don't even know what happened. Like, what's? Oh no, no, no! He went to the apartment of the person who like ran away with his money, and it got ransacked by the police. I think is what happened.
oh, okay. I might have been a little confused by that, but honestly, I wasn't as invested in that story.
Yeah.
So that kind of goes to my point, you know?
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier too. Is almost wanting to go back to the main family, but I can see how it rounds out like the connection of like the experience of the dad with his immediate family. I mean, if you're gonna paint a slice of life type story, you gotta have things that go on with your family. You know.
Yeah, and he was so funny.
Yeah.
He's a great character. No, I mean, he's a great character, so I can understand why they would put him in so much. And I'm, I'd rather them put him in more than too little, I guess.
That's true. That's
Actually, scratch that. I lied. Opposite of that. But also, I don't care. Like, it's not a big deal, you know?
Mhm.
Not a huge criticism.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, well, it's not a huge criticism for me as well. It just kind of bumps it from like perfect to like not perfect, but I really like it, you know? But it's just so hard hitting because I feel that in a like a family sense, um, there's a lot of made families as well, you know? I feel that going to college and like living in a place with a bunch of other people as well that you're close to can kind of sometimes seem like an almost distant family, really. Like everyone is going through their own things, and we sometimes meet to like play Smash or watch a movie or something like that. But generally, everyone deals with their own thing, and how that can be a lot more isolating than I thought it was in the beginning. You know, especially being shown that it can happen in like a real family too. Not that it was like a revelation to me, but it was just like, yeah, this is something that you haven't thought of in a while, and I think that really hit me.
Yeah, I think it was very impactful on that level, and also, you know, kind of talking about the overarching kind of thing that we've been neglecting so far, but but the impact of the family through the grandma's stroke
Oh yeah.
that happens at the beginning and is, omniscient throughout the film. That impact that has, and the way that each individual person deals with her dying life is the backbone of the movie for me, and it kind of creates that tone and mood that I feel like is hard to emulate.
Honestly, I think that debatably, she is the best written character in this movie.
I mean, that's not crazy. It's not crazy to say that.
Yeah. I just feel like it was just so perfect for them to use a grandma to instigate these types of things. And I really, what's it called? Advocate for the interpretation that there is like a representation of every type of thing that needs to be done in a family with each of the characters, like the dad goes to work, he makes some money, he comes home, the mom like takes care, except she left, and the kids do their kids things, but the grandma's there to listen, and then when she is gone, no one's there to listen anymore. And at the same time, even though they urge them to talk to her, and she takes on this form of pure listening. Like, even though grandmas, they might be there to listen more, but they still have things to say. But this one didn't at all. So there's like nothing. And the fact that none of them could really talk to her that much, it almost reminds me of like people having problems, but even when someone sits down and totally listens to you, sometimes you just don't know what to say, and I guess the lack of connection in that. And at the very end, it's only through not even really words. I guess you could say the son had some words, but other than that, it was only just like this mutual feeling of togetherness, and not necessarily like a conversation that brought everyone together, or a speech or something. I guess he'd give a speech, but it's
a bit of a speech, but it's
Yeah.
not. I mean, I don't know. I love what you're saying about that, because it really was my favorite aspect of the entire film, and the way that even like through her just being unconscious on a bed, she's really the mechanism. She brings the family together with her last breath. You can tell that they're closer and they're more understanding of one another, and maybe these individual treks happen technically not literally by their grandma, but these kind of things, and the realization of their mom or grandma or mother-in-law's death.
Yeah.
These kind of things happening in conjunction with that lead to the epiphanies that bring them closer.
Yeah, it's not like she does anything really. Obviously not.
Yeah,
but,
clearly.
But just the presence there, and the lack thereof, I guess, like pushes those themes up more towards the surface than to have someone like that can dish out some wise words whenever you're feeling down. That would definitely not bring up that theme of togetherness that it does in this movie quite as well. It almost reminds me of like a familial Lost in Translation type movie.
Oh, I've never seen it.
Oh, really? Oh, man, you haven't seen Lost in Translation?
Oh, wait.
The Sofia Coppola?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I have seen it, sorry. I was thinking, I have absolutely no idea why, but I was thinking of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Oh, really?
Which is it's a completely different title and a completely different
I haven't seen that
story.
one either, but yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Uh-huh.
Keep going.
Because I actually see a lot of that tone in like the specific shots where he looks at the glass, and you kind of see the reflection of what's going on as shadows in the background, and it's really lit mostly by the street lights and like city lights. One other one that struck me the most was when the mother kind of talked about how she didn't know what to do, and she was talking to her friend to go to the mountains or whatever. But they did that multiple times where characters kind of feel transparent themselves. They don't feel as much themselves anymore. Maybe like a detachment to the world. It would like pull up these stagings. I forget how to say it. Frame. They would frame it in that way, you know. And that gave me a lot of spending a night out in Tokyo and just like
Oh yeah.
not really talking to anyone and feeling disconnected and that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about with like the Lost in Tokyo and the kind of isolation that comes with it. I gotta say, I'm not the biggest fan of Lost in Translation.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you are either.
Yeah, I felt like I liked it as like a mood piece. So like that's what I respected about it, but it didn't like severely cement itself in my mind. So I would say I would have similar feelings to with you. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it does like the way in which they handled the isolation in this movie is so beautiful because they're never really isolated. Like oftentimes they're not actually on their own. Although when it does show them while they're on their own, it's always like something nice. It's always like
Yeah.
it's always a money shot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Actually, now that I think about it, one other thing that I love about this film is they always pay attention to the side characters. You know what I mean? Like you've got the main family and their interactions, but the filmmaker Edward Yang, he always does a great job of highlighting the thoughts and feelings of the people they're attached to. He always gives them like one or two scenes, you know, like the first one that comes to my mind is the young lover of the main character.
Mm-hmm.
You know, her going into her hotel room after their exchange, like, you're the only person I've ever loved, and then she comes in and she just bends down and starts crying. Like, things like that give humanity and they give life to the entire world, and it just creates a much richer environment, and it adds so much.
Yeah, I think you kind of put into words what I was like debating in my mind because I'm like, I do want to just go back to the family, but it creates this world that makes everything a lot more believable, and almost in the sense Edward Yang balances this type of family focused film, but making it a film about a community almost as well, you know. And maybe I came in with the expectation that it would be more of like a family focused film meal. I was about to say meal. Family meal plan, bro.
Wow, the newest technology in film.
But yeah, I felt like it was gonna be a more like tragic, like family study, but it was a community with a specific focus on a family in that community, you know, which is kind of teetering between, you know, do I want to put that in life changing because it didn't really affect me that much watching it, but I think it was a good, respectable choice that he did and a good like writing choice that he did, you know.
Yeah, and I think it helped more with some characters than others.
Oh,
Like,
for sure.
you know, the brother-in-law, just as an example again, like he felt like he could have gotten a little bit less.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, if he had the kind of care and attention that, let's say, the young lover had, or the other young lover of the daughter,
Yeah.
the guy,
Yeah.
you know, or like just smaller things like the roommate, like the girl's friend who was
Oh,
dating
yeah.
him before, or like the mom and the teacher, all of that
Yeah.
crazy shit. Like, other than the murder in the end, these kind of atmospheric things, like just talking to your neighbors, it's just nice because it's the idea that, you know, you are not just you are part of a community, and your relationship with others is very instrumental in who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So just normal, like, everyday conversations, the people that you have that everyday intimacy with, they're a very vital part of our lives for most of us.
Yeah. And I think that thematic honing or like reiteration of life being a collection of mundane and like emotion filled moments was what made me like almost nostalgic, but for something that really never was there. You know, I feel like in today's age, at least in America, or at least my childhood, you know, I had this small Vietnamese community when I was little, but growing up generally, like a lot of families are a lot more isolated now. You kind of like barely know your neighbors, especially in American culture as well. Like you don't really bother your neighbors or anything like that. And in Asian culture, you know, when the young son was taking pictures, like the neighbor's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And she was like, "I haven't seen your mom in a while," and all that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And that type of um, balance between relationships is a core factor of I feel like what's missing in life. You know, you have people who you don't know, and then people who you are really close to nowadays. And there's not really these um, close neighbors almost, you know, these people where you can share parts of your life but maybe not all of it with, you know.
Yeah, well, actually, when I was growing up, we were always like
really?
kind of close to our neighbors, so I kind
That's
of
good.
had like a little community like that. Although I'm aware that in American culture, it's usually not like that. I think
Mhm.
just my family, like coming from Iowa, and honestly, the Irish are pretty close to that kind of idea in Iowa. Like everyone's your like family. If you go to like someone's house, they're making dinner for you that
Sounds
night
like
or
a movie I
something.
just watched. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
We can talk about that this weekend.
Sure. I mean, but I think that's something that resonated with me a lot from this film. It's
Yeah.
like that kind of community. It was nostalgic for me in a way. Like I oftentimes felt like I was like the little boy, you know, just when he was playing in the tub, I was like, oh, I remember that. Or
I
just,
blocked out most of my childhood memories. Well, I'm just kidding.
oh damn.
But to bring that back to the other thing you were saying, I feel that the past lover that he had was my favorite side character. I feel like she was done in a way that is perfect for a side character, and yet like it was still emotionally impactful. You know, I think the line that solidified that for me is when she said, "You know, I have everything now. Like I could divorce my husband, and I'd be set for life. You know, but there's still like something missing here. There's still like." To paraphrase, like you still don't like me or love me or anything like that, and I feel like that um, self-absorbed in a self-absorbed way. I feel like that might be like a possible future for me. You know, I feel
like a simp.
What do you mean? She's got her own life, man.
She was ready to give it all away just for this one guy 30 years ago.
No, but I feel like she's just a misunderstanding of love. I feel like is a better way to say it. Thanks for calling me out there. But as if it's something that she just needed to fix in herself that will make him like her enough, you know? And when they discuss about their issues, and he talks about how she wanted him to be something that he didn't feel happy being, you know? And that's why he left without a trace. He felt like there was nothing to say at the end of the day. And even though watching them is so beautiful, that is a really powerful statement because although they connected so well, she fundamentally didn't see him in some way, you know? And yet she felt like if she could just get enough money or show how happy she could be or how like financially successful or emotionally successful or like concrete in any way, that she could be able to win him in that way. But it's not really the issue there, you know? And the fact that, you know, at the end of the day, you get to watch her break down and just be so confused about why things happen the way they did was pretty impactful for a person that didn't have that much screen time, and it works perfectly that they didn't have that much screen time, you know?
Yeah, and I think it does a good job of capturing like young love in a sense. Not that I know much more than that, but it's
Hey,
just kind of the idea that like, you know,
I've seen the Notebook. I know about young love.
no, yeah, but like, I haven't seen The Notebook.
What?
I've never seen it. I'd love to get drunk one night and watch The
Oh, for
Notebook.
sure. It's effective. I can't hate on that movie, even though it's definitely like a try and hit you in the feels type thing.
Honestly, like I think that'd be a funny Space Turtle episode, but
Maybe I'll pick it. Maybe I'll pick it.
maybe, who knows?
I make Joey watch The Notebook. That would be a that would be a title.
I'd love to watch The Notebook, dude. I just haven't gotten it. But anyway,
Yeah, back to it.
like oftentimes when you first like get to know and like fall in love with someone, there's like such a level of passion that it's actually toxic, and you could see that kind of relationship that they had together, and you could see that toxic passion coming back as they're even 40 or 50-year-old adults, which I thought was an interesting interpretation because it's at the end of the day unhealthy, that kind of even they're so far separated, but there's a codependency there, like a very, very clingy almost kind of issue that is hard to address and it's hard to communicate through.
Mhm.
So they do a good job of showing first like the main characters growing awareness of this fact, and as well as his lovers growing awareness of this fact, and the idea that having to face all over again the trauma that they once received, and especially her. Getting like dumped like that, like that's rough. That's like
Hey, she got her payback, bro. She yeeted. She's like, is there no one in this room? What?
Yeah, she did get it a little bit. I don't know if I'd feel good if I were. But like they're both very they're both equally kind of like tortured by this scenario. But I think it did a good job of expressing the evolution of love as far as both of them are concerned.
Yeah. And I think honestly, as much of a meme as it is that the mom just like disappeared halfway through the movie, I think that emulating the grandma, it was almost a good choice in some degree. You're able to focus on one parent, and then when he speaks about it later, he doesn't like lie to her. I guess he doesn't like, we don't watch him like divulge all the details or whatever, but he doesn't lie to her. He says like, while you were gone, I had the opportunity to rekindle a love that I had, and yet he's still there. Almost as if it reminds me of the quote that I've recently heard. I don't know who it's from, but that in life, when you're searching for happiness, it's not meant to be like everlasting. It's not like, it's like dopamine, and like if you just constantly have dopamine, that's like drugs.
Yeah.
So in life, it's almost to your goal to find peace, and then by having peace, you can enjoy the happy moments in your life. And I almost feel that that is what the film was trying to say between the dad and the mom of the family. Is that like, yeah, maybe it doesn't show us this like passionate fire of love that it shows him having with his ex, but you know I'm sure there were happy times with his wife too, and the fact that he can have peace with her and he can communicate with her, and they understand each other, I think is the most important thing in that relationship.
Yeah, for some reason, I thought of a Tom Hanks line from what you were saying.
Oh, really?
How dopamine can't be sustained on such a high level. It,
I thought you were gonna quote Forrest Gump on me or something.
No,
For
I'm
some
not
random
gonna quote
life
Forrest
is a
Gump.
box of chocolates. I'm like, no, please don't do it to me.
Oh no, it's a quote that he did like a an actors roundtable or something for Vanity Fair, whatever, some sort of award season push. But his quote is is his mantra, I guess what he says is this too shall pass. And he goes through this soliloquy like, you're feeling happy, you're feeling on top of the world, you're feeling like you can never be down. This too shall pass. And then he says like, you're feeling sad, you feel you feel like you've just failed, you're not going through something. This too shall pass. And I don't know, I kind of fuck with that idea in the sense that like peace and kind of, well, just peace. Peace comes with an understanding that your emotions are temporary and to be at ease with how you're feeling, to be like truly content.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of those lessons emulate that. And I do agree with you that I think it was a good idea for the mom to leave like that, because it's not a decision that I normally see from film. Honestly, a lot of times with films like these, I mean, there's a couple like slice of life, my grandma's dying things.
The
Honestly,
farewell.
The farewell.
Yeah.
I love the farewell too,
Yeah,
but
so good.
the mother usually has a more stereotyped role, but she doesn't usually leave the family like that. But no one feels betrayed by her leaving. Everyone's understanding of what she's doing, and it's not like a bad thing or a bad reaction. In fact, when they both come back together, their relationship is stronger than it was when she left.
Yeah.
So I even though it's kind of funny that she just packs up and leaves when she's such a big character for the first 45 minutes, it does add something. I think it's an original story.
I think it's just that little spice of funniness in the movie that really kind of makes light of situations that aren't so maybe cognitively like expansive, I guess. Like the fact that she left to go up to the mountains with some master and they just call him like the master, and then he comes over and he asks for money, like
oh yeah.
I guess it worked because she came back and actually I guess it didn't work, but at the same time it worked, because she came back, she's like, yeah, these people just kept like asking me stuff, and I'm like, yeah, but this is not that much better than being at home so happy. Yeah. Like, what a mood, man.
This mountain sucks.
It's like I don't feel that much better. I guess that makes me feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's just there's so many little things, and going back to what we were talking about, the kind of isolated journeys these people see, they're all so revolutionary, and they're all so separate, but they're all so together. I don't know. It's honestly hard to put into words the kind of phenomena that this film and atmosphere kind of entails.
Honestly, I feel like the more we talk about it, the more I at least respect the writing more, because I feel like going in, I was gonna say that my favorite part was the directing and the acting, which is still kind of true, but I felt like the writing almost just did a more like slice of life type thing. But now that we talk about it more, I feel that there is a lot more of a care into the lack of intertwining, but in that sense, intertwining the stories by lacking intertwining, if that makes sense at all.
I feel like the writing is brilliant, and it could be my favorite part. It's just that, I think the editing is the worst part. So I feel like some things could have been cut, put on the table, but the writing itself and the essence of what it was going for with all the dialogue and all that, absolutely brilliant. Maybe it could have used like one more filter.
Yeah.
And also it was like a little bit slow.
Yeah.
Just a tad. Like I feel like you could have cut 10 minutes maybe.
Like a 2.5 hour film would have been 235, something like that.
Yeah, like that would have been even more impactful. But you know, it's very small. I mean, I was only looking at my phone like to check the time like once.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, and I think that the fact that the characters were all able to be profound as well. I think what kind of falls under the radar a lot is the daughters. Well, actually, I wouldn't even say it falls under the radar. I feel like I was paying attention to her a lot during it, but I guess our discussion was mostly focused on the youngest and the dad.
That's true. We haven't talked about her enough for sure.
Yeah, and I think that she had this great journey of finding this self forgiveness, I guess, or self satisfaction that she was looking for. Honestly, her story might have in fact impacted me one of the most while I was watching because it felt like this emulation of moral perfectionism almost that she was going through. Like, I never do anything wrong. Like, I always try to be the best person and help everyone out, but like bad things still happen to me. And wrestling with that as a child is a lot more painful than people make it out to be, you know? It's like saying that, oh, well, life is life, life is unfair. Is to say it, but like it really does feel really bad when you're a kid and you just try to be as good of a person as possible and still bad things happen to you, especially if you're taught like in a moral sense, like me growing up like Christian. It's like like yeah, like a very moral backbone type almost like how it would feel like if you believed in karma and yet all you do is good things but bad things still happen to you, it's like and the way that she manifests that into a guilt for not taking out the trash for her grandma, and then that culminates in like one of the only like imaginative sequences in the film was when she falls asleep and her grandma like manifests and she's like, I'm all right and everything. I kind of take it in two different ways. Like, one, it could be that she forgives herself, or it's one that the manifestation is real and the grandma's just trying to say like, yo, I forgive you, or like you did nothing wrong right before she left. I don't know which one you subscribe to, but I thought it was an impactful moment in the film, and the fact that I was actually not expecting her to be dead when she woke up, but I guess so. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I was absolutely surprised when she was dead too, because I don't know, the entire film was so realistic that it just completely caught me off guard.
Yeah.
And I feel like in a lot of situations, I don't know, I hound a movie for doing stuff like that in most situations. And in this one, I wouldn't say I'm like 100% on board with it, but I am like 90% on board with it.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely understand where it's coming from, and it's an interesting dynamic, and it shows well, it can show one thing or the other. I guess it can show her inner forgiveness of herself from the daughter, manifested by her grandma, and actually that's what I particularly subscribe to.
I would say so too.
I mean, I don't feel like that really happened. Or
well, she has the little thing. That's why the little origami thing.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just like, is it like her grandma manifesting or like?
I mean, I feel like there's some symbolism in that, right?
Okay,
like
maybe.
her grandma handing her
the origami,
and then it's like, here's my forgiveness origami.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Is it her grandma like forgiving her, or like telling her there's nothing to forgive or whatever, or is she forgiving herself? I would subscribe more to forgiving herself, because I feel like that makes the dream sequence a little bit less abstract. It's not like in the middle of this movie like the grandma just like resurrected for a second, or like spiritually resurrected for a second and then talk to her. I would more like the fact that she learned to forgive herself, but it's just that little origami thing that I'm just like,
well, maybe he's trying to argue that they're essentially like the same in a way, or like there's maybe some sort of similarity. between the two. But I mean, I agree with you fundamentally. Like, it's definitely a dream. It's definitely a dream sequence.
Yeah.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be. But I mean, because she was like, I mean, she was kind of spry.
Yeah. Yeah, she looked so fucking good, man.
She was
laying there, and I'm like, are they gonna make her look peaceful? She looks like she had a stroke and she's in a coma. I'm not gonna lie. And then she sat up, and she looked like she was ready to go. She was ready to do everything, man.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you don't just get out of bed like that after a coma for a month.
Yeah, she made her whole bed too and everything.
Yeah, she was playing with stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I had a stroke and was in a coma for a month, I don't know if I'd have the brain power to even make origami. But that grandma is built different, though.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess, yeah, that was what I was going to ask you, was about the grandma daughter scene. It's because it's I think it's one of the highlights of the film.
Oh, for sure.
Too.
Yeah. And I like the fact that she had that relationship with that dude. And even though it was so funny and unexpected, whenever she was trying to be nice to him afterwards, and he just started like yelling at her.
Oh, man, that dude's so weird.
Yeah,
man.
He's so weird.
Imagine falling in love with that guy.
I know.
Literally, oh my god, the way he runs away, like from out of nowhere.
Yeah. She's just like, okay, and he's like, this is not right.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's gotta be one of my. If I were to get my heart broken, I hope it's that way, because like I wouldn't be able to take that seriously.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like almost going along the lines again of a relatability with that character. I feel like there is some sort of rejection of this type of clean view of life that I have at the same time as having that clean view of life. You know, when I was talking about like moral perfectionism and like doing good and then like having bad things done to you or like happen to you, she kind of questions it in a headstrong way. She's like, dang, these bad things are happening to me, but like she doesn't ever waver with that enthusiasm for the world, I guess, or that belief in it, I guess. And they kind of have this small conversation when they watch the movie, and she was like, that's kind of sad, and he's like, isn't life sad? You know, blah blah blah, so that kind of stuff. It almost is like two parts in my mind, you know. And even though it was super funny and weird, and it definitely doesn't work. I wouldn't say doesn't work, but like it was surprising as like a character action, as like symbolically in my mind, it kind of emulates what I go through a little bit, you know, her being like, hey, how are you doing, and like just wanted to make sure everything's okay, we can still be friends, and he'd just be like, get out of here, you loser, like you think you can get through life with this like happy-go-lucky like all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I guess that dichotomy of like being good and seeing good in the world, but also not wanting to get hurt, you know? And so like protecting yourself, especially even protecting yourself from people who are really happy. Because I sometimes feel like I accidentally or maybe even purposely do that in a bit, that happy people kind of make me feel like I've lacked some of that ability in some sense, you know? And so I wouldn't ever like scream and yell at them like that, but sometimes it's almost like in my mind I do, you know, especially in myself too.
Well, yeah, and like going back to that scene you were saying, right, with like the no, like isn't everything sad, or like I think so, it's happy. Like
Yeah.
I think that's like it's a great trope in film, I think, to do stuff like that, like kind of have the characters actively talk about the theme of the movie
Yeah.
through their own character dialogue. It's kind of, I always think that's a cute like meta thing, you know, like I always go back to Parasite because the quote like, oh, this is so metaphorical. Like
iconic.
I quote that in my head like at least once a week. But it has presence here because a lot of films like a lot of films do this when it wants to have some sort of awareness, or maybe like prime some of the viewers, like, hey, in case you didn't notice, this is like the theme. And it can feel heavy-handed, and maybe it did a little bit, but also like kind of a flex. I've seen a lot of movies, like I kind of look for these things. Like I don't feel like, I mean, I don't know if it's even that obvious.
Yeah, I always feel like the only criticism I could possibly push onto that is just maybe unsurprising, I guess. Like, other than that, like, yeah, I mean, plenty of things take from other things. I mean, I've already compared this movie, like portions of this movie, to like 2 or 3 other movies. So, but being unoriginal isn't necessarily like a bad thing. And I think written into the story, the 2 characters generally do pretty well, especially the daughter. The guy is a little weird sometimes, but I'm trying to like pick some of the pieces where I'm like, yeah, I can see myself in that. But, I don't know about murdering a dude, but,
I mean, that guy was clearly off his rocker a little bit. He was having a manic episode or something. But, yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of stuff, with this film that is very original, right?
Yeah.
It's just, originality isn't just like, you can't make a film that's purely original, you have to take and bend from some ideas. Like, I think one of my like literature professors, she was telling me, like, I think in essence, like, it's the essence of like, you have to know the story to break the story, because the story is so like, this story is so classic and special, and it's something that everyone attaches themselves to a community. And obviously, like, people have like shared emotions. There's things that people go through that like we all go through. So in that sense, none of my thoughts are probably very original or any of my ideas in real life. So why should a film that represents like real life be so original? But
I think that that reminds me a lot of TikToks that you just go through and they'll just say like the things that you've thought about one random time. Like the easiest one that comes to mind, I wouldn't say the most relatable one, but it's just like having a person run outside of the car when you're driving. And I'm like, damn, I've never had an original thought in my mind, man. I'm like, other people do that too? What the fuck? That's so weird.
I mean, it's awful. Like, I feel like this happened to me so many times on TikTok. And I'm like, wow, I really don't have any original thoughts at all.
But I think that what the film does, at least, is it acknowledges that. I feel like that is one of my favorite parts of the film. Because the whole thing with the youngest son taking pictures of the back of people's heads, that was such a great emulation of what Edgar Yang was trying to achieve with this film. And he also reiterates it in the ending monologue with the kid, that he's just, there may be some things that he can show people that they don't necessarily see often or think about often, or maybe even for the first time. I wouldn't say generally for the first time, but it's like the back of your head, You've seen it a couple times, whenever I go get a haircut, they'll be like, okay, how does it look in the back? I'm like, cool, But the fact that he takes pictures of it and he's like, this is a part of something you don't pay attention to a lot in your life. Even though it's kind of goofy and like the kid sense of it, it's like the perfect way for him to marry this idea of half-truths that he was talking about earlier in the film. And when I first saw the back of the heads, I was like, that's kind of goofy or funny or whatever. But it culminated in something I was like, damn, this kid, he has stuff to say, Going back to the genius aspect of this kid.
Oh my gosh, totally. Like, it was just something that struck me so hard when the kid said it so simply, and obviously he would. He's a kid.
Yeah.
But like, he's like, I'm just trying to get everyone to see the back of their heads, I'm just trying to help you out. And I'm like,
you're welcome.
I'm like, holy shit, that's like you could put that in a museum.
Yeah.
Dead ass put those pictures in a museum. And I'd stare at I'd probably like show up high, I'd stare at them and be like, this shit is crazy.
Bro.
Who took these
For
pictures?
You could flip them in a slideshow for like an hour and call it a movie, and I'd probably love it, you know?
I know. It's so big brain. It's so smooth brain. It's big brain. Oh my god. It's so great. And I think, like, you know, maybe to go in like some sort of conclusionary thoughts for me anyway, like something about film that's very intrinsically important to me, something that's like very important to me, which maybe even more important than some other people, as it because it probably shouldn't be so important, but humor for me is a huge part of film, that and it's probably my favorite thing in life in general.
Hey, laughing is a good it's a good thing.
I wish I were like funnier, but like, you know, it's like it's just a kind of a way of approaching life. It's not it's just an understanding. It's such a humble intelligence, because humor has to look at things that are in real life and make these observations, but it's in, you know, some kind of lighthearted. It's hard to explain, but
Yeah.
but films like this, they recognize the humor in life, and finding the humor in these serious moments, and using them as a sort of authentic appreciation of life is just maybe exactly what I needed. I'm very glad that you picked this film, because it just it scratched the middle spot on my back that I can't like reach.
No, I feel the same way. I feel like humor, or at least the type that I enjoy the most, is like a non-pretentious meta way of like approaching things, you know? It's it's meta in the sense of like you have to know the thing that you're making a joke about in order to approach it from a way that no one else, I wouldn't say ever thinks about it, but just like don't really think about it that way, you know? You kind of approach it in like a surprising way, and that's what makes people laugh, I would say. And that's my favorite part of the humor that is in movies. And I also really appreciate that. That's why The Favorite was up there for one of my life-changing movies, because I felt like it was so funny that it was real, because this is so much like what I expect some queen to act like a big baby, you know?
Yeah.
And like not like a dignified ruler or like a tragedy figure or anything like that, you know? But I think right before I do my closing thoughts, I feel that we should have talked about the Japanese dude a little bit more, because he is also one of my favorite side characters.
I totally forgot about that guy. He's so good. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I loved his magic trick, and it just being like, yo, I just memorized the order of every single card. I'm like,
bro, how do you not just give him the whole company? Like, give him the contract. Like, but obviously it wasn't in his control, so that's kind of the disconnect. Obviously, that's the smart part of the film. But dude, that guy is a beast,
and he's so chill, man.
Oh.
And he's totally understanding. He's like, I get you. Just be upfront with me. I know it's a big risk and everything. I feel like he was so smartly written, almost in a contrast to the ex-lover. Those are my two favorite side characters. One that is self-actualized and knows what he wants and understands the ups and downs and disappointments of life, and he's like, that's okay, if your company says no, just tell me straight up when you know. And then it's like the opposite, where she's kind of like looking to find actualization in like another person type thing. But that's just a side note. I just love him. He's hilarious. I love everything that he says. His quotes are awesome. I feel like generally whenever he speaks, I'm like quotable. That's life lessons right there.
Absolutely. And he's like, just to add one little thing real quick.
For sure.
Him, like characters like that this character specifically, like that's a hero.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, I want to be like him in 20 or 30 years. I feel like I will have reached my peak potential, and I will be at peace with my life if I have an approach the way that this guy does.
For sure. He was definitely the least flawed person in the entire film.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Almost perfect, really. But yeah, I guess my closing thoughts would be the general trend around filmmaking, and the things that he's saying about filmmaking in this movie. And I think that emulates your praise of the humor in film. I feel in a similar sense. It's almost like humor to me is part of like a communication, and I generally find it kind of hard to communicate to others like how I feel, just like the way that the film treats its characters, people going through their own problems, but being like around other people, you know? And I feel that pretty heavily. And I think that at the very end, when he talks about the monologue, and it does kind of like pull yourself out of the little boy because he's a little boy and this monologue is like pretty heavy. I feel like that is almost a smart choice because it kind of pulls you out of this little kid for a second. And because he's the most pure of a person, then the director can insert himself into this kid and speak these last words that he wants to tell the audience. And one of them is that he has something to show people, to point out that maybe people don't really think about that often, or maybe something new that they haven't thought about, you know? And I think that is pretty much film for me. It's looking at things from a different perspective, putting things that I feel into words that I couldn't, or putting things into feelings that I've never experienced, you know?
Absolutely.
And so in that last monologue, although it is like a pretty hefty monologue, I feel like that is his, and the way that it's his last film, it's his last words to like film watchers or just people who consume his art or want to listen to what he has to say. That's his like last thing to them, and I felt like that was like the most powerful last scene that I've seen in a while. Well, I wouldn't actually say that. It's up there just because we also didn't watch what was it? Come and See. So that one's pretty hard too. So we just got some bangers recently. So
we've been watching a lot of good stuff. And honestly, the more we talk about this movie, it's not a perfect film, you know, like we both said, but the more I think about this film, the more we talk about it, the more I'm starting to come to the conclusion that it is still a masterpiece and it should be taught in schools. Like, hey, you want to make a brilliant film, you know, follow this rubric or like this idea for a rubric. I guess you can't do it exactly like that, but you know what I mean. It's like it's just technically a marvel, and it's emotionally a marvel.
Yeah, I think it'll be sticking in my mind for a little while. So things get at that.
Well, I mean that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, those are my closing thoughts. So
okay, so I mean, do the thing, like, subscribe, comments. We're gonna answer all your comments.
I'll get to that one. I'll get to that one. No worries.
I didn't even say anything. You can tell the guilt's seeping in.
Guilt has been seeping in. I need my grandma to manifest, tell me everything's all right.
Damn. I need my grandma to have a stroke so I can answer these comments. But anyway, you know, I mean, whatever, yeah.
This is the end of the season, so I guess we'll come out with a video talking about our picks for the next season. I'll think about that. Joey's already had them down. It'd be like that. I feel like that's our dynamic.
Well, also, I mean, next week, right, we've got the culmination. We've got our season 2 finale.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about all of the films together.
Ranking them.
How our conversations intersect. I'm really excited for next week. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm excited for it too. Well, that's it then. All right, bye.